Hello there. You're watching All 24 World News Midnight Edition. Coming up next are the headlines. Former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan announced that he was calling off his protest march to Islamabad. And Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei reaffirmed that Western countries seek to overthrow the Iranian government. Also coming up, leaders of numerous countries of the EU are in for more humanitarian aid for Ukraine. And also in our news, Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Mr. Amtala Mamra, pays a working visit to Tunisia. Hello again, I'm Karifat Zachary. Welcome to the program. First in our topical news, former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan announced that he was calling off his protest march to Islamabad in his first public appearance since being wounded in a gun attack earlier this month. Khan stated that he feared it would cause havoc in the country. The former Prime Minister has been holding countrywide protests to push the government for early elections since being ousted from power in April. The protests were to culminate in a march to Islamabad, which threatened to worsen political turmoil in nuclear-armed country, which is battling an economic crisis.
If turmoil starts here, the ball will go out of everyone's hands. On May 25, 2022, they did violence on our march. And when I arrived here on the 26th, I knew that things could lead to anarchy. I therefore cancelled the march because I knew if we decide to carry out a sit-in in Islamabad, the next day there could be bloodshed. That is the reason I cancelled the march. Today I have decided not to go to Islamabad because I know there will be a destruction and the loss will be to the country.
To Iran now, in a speech on the occasion of Besiege Week celebrations, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei reaffirmed that Western countries seek to overthrow the Iranian government, but that they will not succeed to do so, referring to the protests that have shaken Iran in recent months. Khamenei also criticized calls to improve relations with Washington, saying that the United States won't stop calling for many concessions, which Iran cannot make.
The problem is not a few street protesters, although every protester, every terrorist must be punished. The battlefield is much larger. The main enemy is global arrogance. How do we solve the problem with America? No, negotiating won't solve anything. Our problem with America can only be solved by letting this country ransom us. The United States demands, in order to end hostilities, that Iran abandon its nuclear program, modify its constitution, limit its influence within its borders, and shut down its defense industries.
Also in our news, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan vowed to protect Turkey's southern border with a safe zone in Syria as Ankara continues its military operation in northern Syria and Iraq. More than 100 people have been detained recently in some Turkish cities for protesting against the cross-border attacks. On the same context, 2 rockets targeted a U.S. patrol base in northeastern Syria late Friday, according to U.S. Central Command, which covers the Middle East region. It is still unknown who fired the rockets, but the same source added that the rockets aimed at coalition forces at the U.S. patrol base in al-Shadadi, Syria. Kassym-Jomart Tokayev was inaugurated as president at the Palace of Independence in Astana after swearing an oath to the people of Kazakhstan. Tokayev emphasized that he would carry out all initiated reforms to the government in order to create a just Kazakhstan with genuinely democratic constitutions or institutions. During the ceremony, Tokayev said that a strategic partnership with Russia, China, and the Central Asian brothers would be a priority for Kazakhstan as well.
Қазақстан Республикасының
I solemnly swear to respect strictly the Constitution and the laws of the Republic of Kazakhstan, to guarantee the rights and freedoms of the citizens, to carry out conscientiously the high office of President of the Republic of Kazakhstan entrusted to me. Our intention will focus on a mutually beneficial cooperation and strategic partnership with neighboring states, Russia, China, and the Central Asian brothers, as well as partners in integration associations.
To Russia-Ukraine file now. Ukrainian cities are living under dire situation as the country has witnessed power shortages due to Russian shelling of Ukrainian infrastructure. The UN and many European countries, in fact, are considering more humanitarian aid for people in Ukraine. The details with Usama Ayati.
Leaders of Belgium, Hungary, Lithuania and Poland met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv on the occasion of the International Food Security Summit. In a speech during the meeting, Polish Prime Minister accused Russia of reaching for death, starvation and hypothermia to civilians as methods to break Ukraine, comparing it to the Soviet-era famine that left millions of Ukrainians dead during the winter of 1932-1933.
Russia today is trying to do the same vis-à-vis Africa and the Middle East. Starve the world in order to take it over. This is the sick logic of Russia.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned of the dangerous humanitarian situation the citizens in his country are living. Zelensky affirmed that more than 6 million households are affected by power cuts, 2 days after massive Russian strikes against the country took place, mainly in the region of Kherson, including Izium and Kharkiv, in addition to the capital Kyiv.
Станом на цей вечір відключення тривають у
Blackouts continue tonight in most regions and Kiev. Over 6 million households in total. Nearly 12 million were affected as of Wednesday evening. Most of problems are currently in the capital, as well as in Kiev, Odessa, Lviv, Vinnytsia, and Dnipropetrovsk regions.
на Одещині, Львівщині, Вінниччині та Дніпропетровщині.
Power outages are gradually being restored in many regions of the country, with power to critical infrastructure connected first, followed by domestic power connections. For its part, the UN have called for more humanitarian aid for Ukraine, considering it a country that lost most of its infrastructure. The UN refugees said that the situation inside the country is continuing to deteriorate, as millions of Ukrainians are living in damaged homes or in buildings that are ill-suited to protect them from the biting cold, with disrupted energy, heating and water supplies, and lost livelihood.
Ukraine is turning increasingly cold, without power, without steady water supply, and without heating. We and our partners are supporting the authorities with generators to critical facilities such as hospitals and schools.
Winter is slowly engulfing the region and has put Ukraine in a test that can reveal the dire situation of the country. Russian forces, for their part, have restarted tightening their grip on the country at a time when NATO started fresh military drills on the Polish Suwalki Gap. The drills involved 2,000 soldiers from land and air forces and more than 1,000 pieces of combat and logistical support equipment.
France and Germany underlined their close ties and friendship on Friday when German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne signed a so-called energy solidarity deal. Speaking to reporters in Berlin, Scholz said German-French relations were extraordinarily close and rich, and they will further deepen these relations.
It is essential to adopt measures to bring energy prices down to reasonable levels, i.e. to levels linked to the reality of production costs, while avoiding deadweight and speculative effects.
France and Germany are intensifying our cooperation in the energy sector, in solidarity, and in neighborly fashion. Already now, we are supplying electricity to our neighbors, among them France. With gas, we in turn profited from reliable European partners, not least France. With this joint agreement, we underlined our energy solidarity.
French President Emmanuel Macron said his 2017 campaign finances were checked and cleared by judges in his first public comments after financial prosecutors said they investigated his election campaign as part of a wider probe into consultancy from McKinsey and its links to the president. President Macron said he did not believe that he was at the heart of the investigation of the National Financial Prosecutor's Office on the intervention of consulting firms in the 2017 and 2022 election campaigns, deeming it normal that justice does its work.
All this, we talked about at length during the presidential campaign. I had already to react. It's around everything that was said around McKinsey, and that could shock many of us, because there was also a lot of alleged taxes evasion and so on. So I spoke out when I was a candidate on this issue, and I learned from the press, as you did, that there were associations and elected officials who had decided to go to court.
To a different topic now. According to data by health officials, China confirmed up to 35,000 new daily COVID cases in 24 hours for the third successive day. China infection rates were around 43% higher than last week, with 24,000 new daily cases. The details with Islam Said.
China reported more than 35,000 local COVID cases on Friday, setting a record for the third day in a row. Over 21,000 areas have witnessed high infection levels across the country, 5 times higher comparing to the last month. Following the discovery of one positive COVID-19 case on Thursday, some residents in Beijing's Chaoyang were prevented from leaving their homes.
I definitely hope it will get more and more humane, right? The government will think for the sake of the people on the ground and be more scientific.
However, the restrictions were lifted because the neighborhood committee staff couldn't produce the legal documentation needed to support the measures.
So I think what we have got today is that so far there is no official announcement about this lockdown. So I think for me, I'm not a challenger to all kinds of authority, but I went out because nobody just stopped me. So I went out, and I think I will follow all the so-called quarantine countermeasures by the government until further notice once this community is recognized as high risk.
Amid strict lockdowns that have left many residents in China's Xinjiang stuck in their homes for more than 3 months, a fire erupted in an apartment building in the regional capital of Urumqi. The fire killed 10 people and injured 9 others.
When I heard that news, I was shocked and I couldn't do anything. I just stood alone, and my brain was just empty, and I began to cry badly, 2 or 3 hours, burying my head.
Some Chinese cities have been under harsh lockdowns for over 3 months to combat the spread of the COVID-19 under China's zero-COVID policy. The country has faced a wave of cases in recent weeks, causing continuous lockdowns and firm travel restrictions, affecting hundreds of millions of people.
Chinese President Xi Jinping made it clear to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un that China was ready to collaborate with North Korea to promote peace, stability, and prosperity on a regional and global scale. Following joint military drills between South Korea and the U.S., tensions around the Korean peninsula have increased. Recent missile launches by North Korea were not covered by state media. Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen has resigned as head of the government, or the governing Democratic People's Party, DPP, after its poor showing in local elections that opened on Saturday. The election is happening a month after the 20th Congress of China's Communist Party, where President Xi Jinping secured an unprecedented third term in office, a point Tsai has repeatedly made on the campaign trail.
From this moment on, I am stepping down as chair of the Democratic Progressive Party. Although the central government has been very diligent, but facing this kind of election result, there are many things we have to think about deeply. We were unable to break through the current makeup of local politics. This shows that we have some ground to cover when it comes to running municipalities and regarding the expectations of the people.
The U.S. Federal Communications Commission banned approvals of new telecommunications equipment from China's Huawei Technologies and ZTE because they pose an unacceptable risk to U.S. national security. The FCC said it had adopted final rules banning the sale or importation of equipment deemed to pose a national security risk to the United States, the latest crackdown on the Chinese telecoms equipment makers. Amazon workers and activists in 30 countries marked the traditional start of holiday shopping season with a series of walkouts and protests to demand better wages and working conditions. More details with Sofiane Kanturi.
On Black Friday, dozens of striking Amazon's employees gathered outside the warehouse in the southern suburbs of Paris to demand pay rises and improved working conditions. It's part of a global campaign to demand better pay for the online retailer on one of the busiest shopping days of the year.
It's an internationally recognized day today because we know that our colleagues are on strike too. We know that in the United States there will be protest activities in front of the warehouse, in front of the CEO Jeff Bezos. There will also be protests in Brazil, Australia, India, etc.
Also in Germany, there were demonstrations at 9 of Amazon's 20 warehouses in the country. Inflation is currently at its highest rate in decades, in the Bavarian nation at over 10%. Spokesperson of Verdi called the recent wage increase at Amazon a drop in the bucket at 3%.
Furthermore, we demand, of course, that the wage increase must be higher. They have now increased wages by 3% at the moment, but with an inflation rate of 10%, there is a drop in the ocean.
Meanwhile, Amazon France said there have been no sign of disruption to operations so far. Two French union officials said they were not expecting a big turnout because of the rising cost of living driving employees to seek overtime.
And to Algeria-related matters, Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community abroad, Mr. Mtala Mamra, paid a working visit to Tunisia as special envoy of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, during which he was received by President Kais Saied. After reviewing the current situation on the regional scene in the context of the political and economic challenges imposed by international tensions, the two parties noted the convergence of views and positions of the two brotherly countries around common threats.
تشرفت بهذا اللقاء.
I had the honor of this rich meeting with President of the Republic of Tunisia, Mr. Kais Saied, whom I conveyed a message to from his brother, President Abdelmajid Tebboune. The message is an affirmation of the joint actions that the two presidents had previously agreed on, which boosted cooperation between the two brotherly countries and intensified coordination and consultation in all areas and issues of common interest.
And to neighboring Morocco now, Morocco's Democratic Confederation of Moroccan Labour called for demonstrations in the coming months as a protest against the financial bill of 2023. This included new taxes on citizens amid Morocco's deteriorating economic situation. The Democratic Confederation has confirmed that a draft financial law did not conjure the social contest, and the imposed tax measures deepened social differences, and it sets out the principle of fiscal justice. President of the Republic of Niger, Mohamed Bazoum, received in the capital Niamey on Friday evening Vice President of the Libyan Presidential Council, Abdallah Lafi, who is participating in the extraordinary summit of the African Union on industrialization and economic diversification in Africa, and the extraordinary session on the continental free trade area. Bazoum praised Libya's participation in the conference, highlighting the relationship between the two countries. Niger is very interested in Libya, whose stability will lead to the regions. The most recent violence in the unstable area occurred on Friday when gunmen carried out several attacks in Kaduna State in northwest Nigeria, according to a government official. Nigeria's central and northwest regions have been terrorized by criminal gangs known as bandits, who terrorized the region by raiding villages, robbing cattle, holding hostages, and setting homes on fire after stealing supplies. M23 group has accepted conditional ceasefire in the region and stated that their leaders won't talk with the government of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The armed group was warned that if they did not cease fire after the deadline, force would be used to push them out. Leaders of the DRC, Rwanda, Burundi, Angola, and Luanda met in Luanda on Wednesday to find a solution to the continuing conflict. They agreed to a ceasefire which went into effect on Friday, but no representative from M23 was present at the talks. However, the group announced that they would accept ceasefire with the condition of holding direct talks with the government in Kinshasa. Still with the same country, Democratic Republic of Congo said it would hold presidential and parliamentary elections on December 20th, 2023, kicking off a year of complex preparations in the vast Central African country. Announcing the date at a ceremony in Kinshasa on Saturday, the Independent National Electoral Commission outlined several challenges, including the logistics of transporting ballot materials thousands of kilometers, health concerns about Ebola and COVID-19, and unrest that has forced hundreds of thousands to flee their homes. Women all around the world took to the streets on the occasion of International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, with the aim of ending assault crimes that have more than 47,000 women killed. Sarah Farjani reports.
On the occasion of the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, millions are demonstrating around the world, holding banners and placards and calling for the prevention and elimination of sexual assault crimes. From Mexico City to Santiago, women across Latin America gathered on the street to demand more action from authorities to stop femicides and to put an end to impunity in gender-based violence.
They cannot deny us anything. We are miserably paid. The government does not protect us. It's not just because a guy hits us that we have taken to the streets. We have to unite. We have to create social cohesion to put an end to this, or we women will suffer because of it.
In Spain, the slogan "Machismo kills, rapes, exploits and erases women" was the theme of the march held by thousands of protesters who are calling for the end of violence against women.
I have come here because of the problem of gender violence, because of all the deaths that are occurring, the mistreatment of women, the social difference that we have been suffering continuously for many years, and that is still happening today.
The protests to raise awareness on the heinous crimes committed against women are also spread around France, where thousands of women clashed with security forces who sprayed tear gas to disperse the crowds.
The risk of regressing, unfortunately, it is still there. Well, we have seen it with the United States in particular in history. Nothing is certain and you really always have to fight. Always show that you are strong, that we are here and that we have the right to live as we see fit.
In the Middle East, Lebanese women gathered outside parliament in the capital Beirut, calling for the amendment of articles relating to crime of sexual assault against women and tougher sentences for perpetrators.
I believe that each of us can be a victim and a witness of sexual abuse. That is why it is my duty to help as much as possible.
More than 5 women and girls were killed every hour by a family member in 2021, according to new UN figures on femicide, making more than 40,000 females worldwide victims of gender violence.
All right, now for more international news, let's follow this news in brief.
Landslide caused by heavy rain hit the Italian island of Ischia. The landslide triggered floods and brought down buildings. Initial reports said 13 people went missing and a woman found dead. Search operation mentioned difficulties in reaching the island with motorboats and helicopters due to bad weather.
Castillo named Betsy Chavez as new prime minister, a close ally and lawmaker who has previously served as Minister of Culture. Peru is mired in a long-standing clash between the independent state powers, which deepened on Castillo's decision to reshuffle his cabinet after Congress rejected his request for a confidence vote, claiming legal requirements were not met to hold it.
Belarus Foreign Minister Vladimir Makey has died at the age of 64 on Saturday. Vladimir has attended a conference of Collective Security Treaty Organization, a military alliance of several post-Soviet states, in Yerevan earlier this week, and was due to meet Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov on Monday.
Cubans remembered their former president and top figure of the Cuba Revolution, Fidel Castro, on the 6th anniversary of his death on Friday. Castro died on November 25, 2016, at the age of 90. The celebration of Castro's legacy took place in ceremony at the University of Havana that was attended by students and few members of the Community Party leadership and old revolutionary comrades.
And finally, to some sports news, the second match of the first round of World Cup finals has seen an extraordinary rivalry as Mitchell Duke was the match winner as Australia beat Tunisia 1-0 at the Algiers at the 2022 World Cup. Poland managed to overcome Saudi Arabia to win their second game with notable level of Saudi team. For his part, Kylian Mbappe scored twice as France earned a 2-1 victory over Denmark, while Argentina won against Mexico by the 2 goals signed by Messi and Enzo Fernandez. Well, that's it for our news bulletin. For more, you can visit our social media platforms as well as our website. From me and the rest of the team, thank you and bye for now.